In the last few years, independently developed games have come a long way in what they're capable of being, both in terms of graphics and mechanics, and Echo is the perfect example of both. But the first thing you notice the second you start playing the game is how absolutely stunning it looks. The environments are incredibly vast and beautiful, extremely well modeled and lit. To be quite honest, it looks better aesthetically speaking than a lot of games with much, much larger budgets. Echo is, however, quite lucky that it looks so beautiful, because there isn't much else to carry you through the opening parts of the game. It's not like it has an overlong tutorial at the start. It takes a ridiculous amount of time to even get to the part where it begins tutorializing the core mechanics. It feels like someone told the developers that the game wasn't long enough, so they added about an hour of padding to the start, full of exposition that seems like it would have been easy enough to weave into the normal gameplay loop, instead of forcing it down your throat while you slowly and aimlessly make your way down dimly lit corridors. That's not to say Echo has a terrible narrative to it, though. There's a deep, foreboding mystery, and you're gradually given small peeks into this dark world you're inhabiting in a way that always makes you want to know more, leading you on just enough to keep you interested without being frustrated that you're not being led in on some secret. And once the game finally deems you worthy of actually playing it, the gameplay experience turns out to be equally great. Echo is one of the most tense and rewarding experiences that I've had in a very long time. The base concept of Echo is relatively simple to grasp in broad terms. Your enemies will do what you do. They'll echo you. But there's a lot more to it than that. Every time the lights go out in the game world, the enemy AI resets. Once it does, it will only perform actions that you performed in the intro. In effect, what you did while the lights were on during the last cycle. You can do whatever you want while the lights are out with no ill effects, but as soon as those lights come back on, you're being watched. In practice, that means if during the last period the lights were on, you were frantically trying to shoot your way out of a corner, gunning down enemies left and right, your enemies will gain the ability to use guns, and they will likely do very little else, and almost certainly kill you very quickly. On the other hand, you can also perform actions that are relatively benign, like eating grapes off a table. That means one of the actions the AI will be able to take in the next cycle is simply eating grapes, removing a possible hostile action that they could have performed. So ultimately, the goal is to make the AI as distracted and powerless as possible while still being able to progress, to get to the next area, whether that's by sneaking by all the enemies, or, more likely, having to carefully kill a handful of them in ways that will not doom you as soon as the lights go out again. Finding that balance between progressing through the game's levels without creating AI that can easily destroy you is incredibly tense. Stealth has consequences beyond simply having to kill a handful of enemies, and something as simple as having to run away or open a door can doom you in unexpected ways. Sadly, despite the amount of time the game spends on it, Echo's story ends up being a bit disappointing, in the same way that many deep mysteries do. The game simply fails to provide answers for all of the questions it poses, or even a decent percentage of them, and it leaves you kind of befuddled at the end, without a clear resolution. The story is kept deliberately vague in a way that has become far too common in the age of appointment television. Similarly, the game's visuals, which begin the game being absolutely stunning and beautiful, very quickly begin to become very repetitive. While this was likely necessitated by a low budget, it makes you feel like you're going through the same rooms again and again, rooms that have been slightly jumbled, like they've gone through a random map generator. Still, the environments never get tiring. Enough is changing from room to room, and you are rarely given too much time to really pay attention to the environment and notice the similarities for very long before you come under assault once again. Despite, and in some cases because of, its flaws, Echo is an incredibly fantastic game that aims for amazing heights, and in a lot of ways reaches them. Its mechanics are very inventive and a whole lot of fun to play with, and while its world might become a bit repetitive, it is one that is absolutely stunning. to look at. On In Case You Missed It, I look at games that were ignored when they came out or have been forgotten since. Games that people have missed. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.